Next, we talk about Babygirl, an exploration of sexual desire and HR violations. Um,
That's an intro. I mean you're not wrong. I really like this film. So this stars Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson, and they basically form a sort of, sub-dom relationship. She is the head, very important CEO of a tech company, and he is a lowly intern. But they meet for the first time outside the building when there's a kind of, a dog behaving very aggressively, and he calms it down with a cookie. And just something about him intrigues Nicole Kidman's character, not least because she is in a relationship with a character played by Antonio Banderas, who she loves and she has, children with, but isn't able to satisfy her sexually. The film begins with a kind of extended sequence of Nicole Kidman's character faking an orgasm. And it really kind of then does a deep dive on her desires, her feelings of, of what it means to be a woman in the workplace, a woman in society, and specifically a woman who is middle-aged and doesn't feel like the world necessarily is going to have time for her much longer, and that is very much also connected to, I think, her appearance. And when this dynamic with Harris Dickinson kind of sparks into something a little bit more erotic, she finally feels that she is able to engage with a part of herself that has been locked away essentially for the entirety of her life. There's a kind of discussion as to, does she have some kind of events in the past that have made her this way? But actually the film, I think makes it very clear that no, desire and sexuality are complex and fluid things, and it's not necessarily something that you can kind of break down in a conventional way. Because of that, I think the film itself is quite unconventional in places, and I really loved how it explores various storylines with a sort of a magical realist quality. And I think basically this film has absolutely loads on its mind because it's interested, as I mentioned, in kind of women in the workplace, but it's also interested in how that intersects with issues of race and class and the idea of the automated future. And that ties in, I think, so interestingly to this kind of very frank discussion of carnal desire, where essentially, humans are at their least robotic, if you like, at their most animalistic. And so I felt it had a lot to say, it had a lot on its mind. Perhaps it had too much on its mind, because as a result of the fact that it's really interested in vast swathes of ideas, a lot of them never really came into focus for me. But overall, I liked it. I thought it was very well executed. Nicole Kidman, absolutely outstanding, I think, in this film. Harris Dickinson gives a very kind of intriguing performance where you're never even quite sure if he's real. I thought it was very, very well done. I thought it told a very interesting story and told it in a way that was similarly interesting. But I didn't feel that it kind of coalesced into a whole that was particularly coherent at times. I'm not quite sure at the end of the day if everything this film wanted to say gets out correctly. Tell me what you think, Jake, because I can see from your expression that you disagree.
well, it's really interesting to hear what you have to say about it because I had a very different experience with the
Yeah.
film. I think maybe the central problem to me, and I've been trying to, a lot of times when I dislike a film, it's either very guttural and instant, and I understand why, or there's a mystery, like why didn't I get it? Is it because I was just not clued in? Is it because I need a bit more context? Can it be recontextualized through my own sort of research, watching it again, that sort of thing, and trying to not completely outright rule out films just because I didn't like them the first time I saw them. However, I think now listening to you is that I did have that big disconnect with the characters. I understood Nicole Kidman's character. I got it, and I think it's well performed for what this film is. I think it is well performed. But I don't believe that Harris Dickinson's character seems realistic in the sense that I don't know why someone would be so infatuated with someone like that. And I guess it's all part of the story. And yes, he's a very beautiful man in his sort of the way, I guess you could say the way he's sculpted. But his sort of character has this domineering attitude, but is also just very, dare I say, Gen Z in sort of his apathy and his sort of lack of emotional reality. It does seem very distant. It feels like the character doesn't exist. He feels really out of place amongst quite a natural performances from, Nicole Kidman. And of course, again, I also think that Antonio Banderas does the best performance in the film because it feels the most natural. And again, you do say there's a lot of anti-realist stuff. It goes into surrealism in certain aspects of just the experience, and Harris Dickinson seems like that, a character who just seems to show up wherever she is, almost like a haunting ghost. But I didn't see their connection. It felt like she was acting very hard to connect with that character. And you could say that she just wanted to be controlled by this very powerful young man. But and again, I just didn't find him very interesting. Why someone would fall so deeply for that character? Maybe that's my own problem. Maybe if I met him in real life, I'd be swooned and swept away by him. I did love the score. I thought that was really interesting. A sort of a very sexual, guttural use of the voice in the music. A big problem I had again with this film is that I can sense it's made very well, and I could see why people love it. But I thought a big angle seems to be her liberation from her own entrapment. And at no point did I feel like she looked liberated or happy. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily the thing, whether that's what the aim was, whether that this isn't the cause, the desire or sexual extremity is what will liberate her. But it seems to be that sex and orgasm is something that she really values. Of course, as it should be, desire should be really engaged with. Everyone should have a healthy relationship with that. But I don't think any of the relationships are healthy. The whole movie sort of hinges on the fact that no one communicates. I just felt that all the characters were stupid. Like, genuinely, just talk to each other, please. And I know you're so trapped, but it feels like in this modern day and age of a more expressive or an encouragement for people to communicate, that I just felt very frustrated in myself. And I guess that's related to the character's own sexual frustration. And I felt that, she was very reckless of a character. And I didn't feel that any of the stuff she did was appropriate. And maybe that's necessary. I feel very confused because I feel like what the film tried to achieve, and probably achieved quite well, made me distance myself from the film.
So I watched this and I was kind of a little bit on the fence about it because I do think that it is a film which definitely I think bites off more than it can chew. When I came out of the cinema, I sort of had a very in-depth discussion with my partner, who absolutely, kind of, was loved the film, just felt like it encapsulated and discussed so issues in such an effective way. And to a certain extent, that leads me to think, well, maybe, this is a film that just isn't really for me personally. And I think that happens sometimes, and that's completely fine. From my point of view, I admire this film more than I like it. There are bits of it that I think are great, and I love how it kind of keeps you guessing, even towards the end. There were sequences where I was genuinely on the edge of my seat because I thought, what's happening here? Like, I have no idea where this is going. So I was engaged by it, but I think, kind of as a thematic piece, it doesn't necessarily all come together in a way that is satisfactory. To me, the film is really interesting, and I do recommend it. I think people should go and see it, and maybe they'll get different things out of it. I think to a certain extent, it's a film that will work on different levels for different people. But, I think it's worth seeing it for that and for the discussions that you'll have
Mm.
afterwards. Obviously, from a performance point of view, it's been interesting to see this perhaps not get the awards buzz we were expecting. I think Nicole Kidman was up for a Golden Globe. But, it's very, very intriguing, I think, to see how, the response to this is perhaps quite divisive. And I think we're quite a good example, maybe, of how the film, you can see all the rave reviews out there, but it didn't really work to the same extent for me, and certainly not for you. I'm less in the Babygirl camp and more in the Babygirl